For decades, we've stared into the cosmic abyss, hoping, guessing, imagining, searching not just for planets or stars, but for something different, something impossible. We've sent our machines, Voyager, Hubble, and now the James Webb Space Telescope, to slice through the darkness of space and expose its deepest secrets. But what Webb just uncovered may not be a secret. It may be a message. And even worse, it might be alive. At first, 3 Atlas looked like just another interstellar traveler, a ghostly rock flung across the void. But it wasn't just glowing. It was pulsing. Not randomly, but with chilling precision, like a heartbeat, a signature. And what came next wasn't just a mystery. It was a warning. Stay with me until the end. Because if this discovery is what some scientists believe it is, then we're not alone. And we never have been. The James Webb Space Telescope was designed to look further than any human eye ever could across galaxies into the birthplaces of stars and beyond the edge of time itself. But in a routine sweep of deep space, it locked onto something, moving unnaturally, a speck of light where there should have been nothing. This was 3 Atlas, the third confirmed interstellar object to pass through our solar system. But unlike Oumuamua or Borisov, this one wasn't silent. It was shouting. At first, astronomers thought it was just highly reflective, like a comet coated in ice. But Webb's infrared sensors revealed something far stranger. The object was not reflecting heat from the sun. It was producing it, an internal thermal signature, centralized and pulsing faintly. This was not the signature of a rock. It was the signature of something active. As teams at NASA and ESSA began analyzing the data, one pattern kept resurfacing, a rhythmic thermal pulse, coming from deep inside 3 Atlas. Natural objects don't do this. Comets emit heat as they sublimate, releasing gas and dust in unpredictable bursts. But this pulse, it was consistent, deliberate like a machine. When the Webb team cross-referenced the readings with known astrophysical phenomena, pulsars, neutron stars, quasars, none matched. Then came the photometric data. The light spectrum wasn't scattered. It was focused, narrow bands of energy emitted, in specific wavelengths, the kind we use in communication, the kind we design for satellites, spacecraft, and lasers. And that's when the whispers started. This wasn't a signal we were receiving. It might be one we had just interrupted. Data scientists began filtering the signal through Fourier transforms, searching for patterns. And hidden beneath what looked like cosmic static was a terrifying revelation, a pulse. Not random, not natural, but structured. The intervals were too precise, like a whisper coded in chaos. Some thought it was a beacon. Others believed it was telemetry. Data being sent back to somewhere else. And the worst part, the pulse never changed. Since the first moment Webb recorded it, the signal had remained absolutely constant, not affected by radiation, movement, or time. This wasn't the voice of a dying star or a rogue planet. It was something that wanted to be heard, or maybe something that wanted to listen. Then, without warning, everything changed. 3 Atlas erupted in a burst of light, its brightness spiking by 40%. In less than 2 minutes. No natural object flares with that kind of symmetry. Thermal readings showed the object's entire body heating up like a machine powering on, and then its trajectory shifted by fractions of a degree at first. Then, with undeniable intention, 3 Atlas corrected its path. It was no longer following the passive arc of gravity. It was aiming, not directly at Earth, but near it, aligned with the inner planets, slipping just inside our orbital path. A maneuver, so precise, so unnatural, it couldn't be dismissed. Something inside 3 Atlas had woken up and it was moving. After the trajectory shift, a team at the European Southern Observatory pushed the analysis further, using spectral decomposition algorithms designed to detect organic molecules in exoplanets. They filtered the emissions from 3 Atlas again and found something no one expected. Within the energy signatures were fluctuations eerily similar to biological rhythms. Not DNA, not proteins, but something more fundamental. Resonance frequencies consistent with cellular behavior. In other words, the light coming from 3 Atlas didn't just reflect energy. It fluctuated in ways that resemble living tissue. This wasn't some asteroid accidentally mimicking life. This was a signal encoded in light behaving like a living system, and the implications beyond comprehension. If the object is partly biological, it would mean one of two things. Either it's alive or it's carrying something that is. Just when excitement turned to fear, another anomaly emerged. Power levels, if we can call them that, suddenly dropped. The thermal readings flattened. The emissions dimmed, and the spectral pulses lost their intensity. But the object didn't slow down. It didn't drift. It kept moving with chilling precision, like a machine switching into stealth mode. Some scientists described it as a heartbeat, pausing, holding its breath. Was it hiding from us? Was it reacting to our attention? One unsettling possibility began to circulate. What if we were not the first to observe it? What if this is its defensive state? What if every time a civilization gets close to understanding, it shuts down? Whatever the case, the drop in energy didn't calm anyone. In fact, it terrified them more because a silent, cold, invisible probe is far more dangerous than one that makes noise. Then something happened much closer to home. Monitors at the South Atlantic anomaly, Earth's weakest magnetic region, began detecting ripples, not solar flares, not gamma bursts, but localized electromagnetic pulses timed with Atlas's trajectory adjustments. As the object passed through the outer heliosphere, our planet reacted. Subtle shifts in our magnetic envelope echoed the pulses coming from the interstellar object. Physicists scrambled to explain it. No comet or asteroid has ever triggered Earth's magnetosphere from this distance. Non naturally occurring. Bodies should be capable of generating synced electromagnetic responses. The only logical conclusion: we are connected. Atlas's emissions are affecting our world and perhaps communicating with it. At this point, a group of independent researchers put forth a theory too outrageous for mainstream science, but too compelling to ignore. They proposed that 3 Atlas was not just a spacecraft, not just a living probe, but a consciously designed intelligence. Not a machine piloted by something, not a drone deployed by someone, but the entity itself, a form of artificial or even biological intelligence born not in a lab, but in the depths of interstellar evolution. This theory suggests that in other parts of the galaxy, consciousness may not evolve in carbon and neurons, but in plasma, electromagnetic fields, and engineered matter. And if that's true, then Atlas is not a visitor. It is an ambassador of a type of life we've never imagined. A life that moves across galaxies, hides in comets, and waits patiently until a civilization is advanced enough to recognize its presence. And guess what? We just did. As global observatories recalibrated their instruments to follow 3I Atlas with maximum precision, a disturbing new measurement emerged. Gravitational lensing effects around the object weren't matching its estimated mass. In fact, the curvature it created in surrounding space implied the presence of something much denser, or, more precisely, something capable of manipulating gravity fields. This broke every model astrophysicists rely on to predict motion and interaction between celestial bodies. The only time we've seen anything remotely similar: black holes. But 3 Atlas isn't a collapsed star. It's smaller than a moon. So how? Is it warping space around itself? Some theorists proposed it was using localized gravity control, not as propulsion, but as a navigation system, like a submarine adjusting ballast to glide silently through an alien ocean. This would mean we're not just dealing with advanced engineering. We're dealing with physics that has been conquered and mastered, not studied. Then came what many now consider the most damning evidence of all. A small fragment trailing behind 3 Atlas broke off and began tumbling through space. At first, it was dismissed as standard comet debris. But when the Webb telescope locked onto it and analyzed its structure, the data froze the team in disbelief. This fragment wasn't irregular or organic. It was geometrically perfect. Smooth, flat surfaces, right angles, symmetry, the kind of structure that only intelligent fabrication can produce. And even more chilling, it emitted no detectable temperature, completely inert, no radiation, no heat. It absorbed light, but never returned a trace. It was almost as if it was watching, but invisible to itself. And its composition, unknown alloys with atomic signatures not found anywhere on Earth or in known meteorite samples. This wasn't space dust. This was a part of something engineered. Astronomers at the Monarch Observatory in Hawaii began tracking 3I Atlas's spin behavior. Like many elongated space bodies, it rotated but not randomly. Instead, the rotational pattern revealed something bizarre. Timed intervals that matched certain mathematical constants. Pi, the golden ratio, and even prime number sequences. It was as if the spin itself was a broadcast, a language of motion, a kind of cosmic Morse code waiting to be translated. Some now believe this rotation is intentional, that it's not spinning due to momentum, but performing an act, a ritual of recognition, as if it's repeating a message over and over. A message designed to be seen, not heard. And it raises the ultimate question. Are we witnesses or the intended recipients? A final deep scan spectrometry reading from Webb's life detection algorithms revealed something that turned even the most skeptical minds into believers. Organic signatures, not stable carbon chains, not fossilized proteins, but flickering signals consistent with replicating structures. These weren't full life forms, but they were precursors, a scaffold of biological components, synthetic or real, embedded. In the tail of Atlas, two possibilities emerged. First, this could be some form of biological camouflage, an engineered mimicry designed to fool primitive sensors into thinking Atlas is natural. A tactic used by many species on Earth, octopuses, cuttlefish, even viruses. But the second theory is far more disturbing. This biological residue might be intentional seeding, a delivery system for spreading extraterrestrial genetic code. As if Atlas is not just a probe, but a messenger of life, a modern panspermia using advanced propulsion not to study life, but to spread it. As the object drew closer to the inner edge of our solar system, multiple magnetometers, both on Earth and aboard deep space probes, began recording a strange oscillation. Not the chaotic interference you'd expect from a solar storm, but precise rhythmic shifts in local magnetic fields. These pulses appeared in triplets like a metronome with purpose, and they didn't fade with distance. In fact, their amplitude increased as 3I Atlas approached, suggesting the object was not just emitting magnetic energy. It was interacting with ours, almost as if scanning or syncing with the solar system's magnetic layout. The pattern matched nothing in nature. Some likened it to a handshake protocol, like a spacecraft establishing a secure connection. But with what? The sun, Earth, or something we haven't yet discovered lurking between the planets? Here's where things get even more unsettling. Communications specialists attempted to respond, sending carefully encoded radio pulses back toward 3I Atlas using deep space network antennas. The signals were built around prime numbers, binary mathematics, and even artificial tones resembling musical intervals. But there was no reply, no echo, no bounce, nothing. Except 1 hour after the last pulse was transmitted, 3 Atlas subtly altered its spin rate. Not enough for most instruments to catch, but precisely enough to be noticeable by the team that had initiated the message. Some took it as acknowledgement. Others saw it as dismissal. But either way, it wasn't random. It behaved not like a natural body absorbing a message, but like an entity aware it had been contacted and choosing not to speak. In intelligence analysis, this is called conscious non-communication, a psychological tactic or silence. speaks louder than response. In the vast vacuum of space, silence is terrifying. Backtracking through historical astronomical records, researchers discovered something no one expected. Subtle disturbances in infrared sky, surveys dating back decades. In 1987, 1998, and 2013, there were small anomalies in the same vector along which 3I Atlas is now traveling. This suggests it might have passed near our system before. But the kicker, each appearance lines up with a sharp rise in unexplained radio bursts and gravitational wave anomalies recorded at the time. This raises the haunting question, has 3I Atlas been here before? And more importantly, is it looping? If that's true, this isn't just an object passing by. It's a repeating presence, possibly observing cycles of planetary development, human progress, or maybe something much deeper encoded in Earth's own timeline. The most recent recalculations of its path revealed something that sent shock waves through the community. 3 Atlas is not heading directly toward Earth, nor toward the Sun. Instead, its trajectory curves just enough to bring it into close proximity with Jupiter's moon, Europa. And even more curiously, the adjusted arc intersects with Saturn's moon, Enceladus, if the object were to make another pass. Both are icy worlds, both hide subsurface oceans, and both are considered prime candidates for alien life within our solar system. So the new theory emerged. What if Earth isn't the destination at all? What if this entity, whatever it is, has been visiting ocean worlds to monitor, seed, or awaken life hidden beneath the ice? We assumed we were special. We assumed we were the point. But what if 3I Atlas's true interest lies in what's hidden beneath the surface of moons we haven't even touched? As the deep space transmissions faded into static and the object continued its silent arc, one theory gained terrifying traction. What if 3 Atlas isn't emitting signals to communicate because it doesn't need to? What if it's not trying to speak, but to listen? Imagine a probe so advanced, so ancient that its sole function is observation without interference. No lasers, no londives, no messages, just passive absorption of everything around it. Atmospheric resonance, electromagnetic fields, human technology emissions, even biological rhythms from Earth. Some researchers began to suggest that its silence wasn't a malfunction or a defense mechanism, but its default design, a perfect spy, invisible, undetectable until now. This reframed the entire narrative because if 3-2 Atlas is a probe and it's been to this system before, then it means this isn't its first report. It could have already sent its data. And the real question becomes to whom? Perhaps the most haunting discovery came last. A research team at Caltech ran the organic spectral data through a comparative model, not against alien life, but against Earth-based genomic markers. What they found wasn't a match, but it wasn't entirely foreign either. There were structural parallels, repeating nucleotide arrangements, echoes of patterns we see in viruses, retrotransposons, even ancient non-coding DNA sequences. The possibility that the biological residue trailing 3 Atlas may contain information coded in a universal genetic language, a structure so fundamental that it can adapt itself across planetary environments, whether through evolution or design. In other words, this object may carry life-building instructions, not just seeds of alien biology, but perhaps the very templates from which life on Earth was sparked. The implications are beyond science. They touch on origin, purpose, and authorship. And if that's the case, then the final mystery isn't just what 3I Atlas is. It's who sent it. So now we know 3 Atlas is not just a visitor, not just an object passing through our skies. It's a question, a challenge, a reflection of our own arrogance and our deepest fears. We looked into the dark, hoping to find stars, and instead we found a watcher, a listener, maybe even a messenger. But from where? From when? From who? The James Webb Telescope has given us data, but hasn't given us peace. Because what it found out there, organic trails, magnetic pulses, engineered symmetry, and coded patterns doesn't point to nature. It points to intent. And when the universe reveals intent, it means we're no longer alone in the story. And that's the real fear, isn't it? That something has been observing us all along. That our radio signals didn't echo into nothingness. They reached something far older, something far more patient. And now it has returned. Whether 3 Atlas is a probe carrier, or the probe's creator itself, its silence is not ignorance. It is deliberate. And if it has chosen not to speak yet, then we must ask, what is it waiting for? Astronomers turned their attention to the core, the solid nucleus at the heart of the coma, and what they found sent shivers down their spines. Early estimates from Hubble suggested the nucleus was tiny, barely 300 to 500 m across. But when Webb and SphereX began scanning in near-infrared wavelengths, the intensity of reflected light didn't match those dimensions, not even close. According to repeated models, the nucleus might actually be over 46 kilometers wide, making it larger than 90% of all comets ever observed. That kind of mass should have made Atlas obvious from the start. Its gravitational field alone could have distorted light from background stars. Yet somehow it had remained invisible until now. How? Some scientists suggested the reflectivity might not come from the core at all, but from particles in the coma. But that theory fell apart when they analyzed the reflectivity curve. It was too smooth, too consistent. It looked engineered. A natural body should scatter light randomly. But this was symmetrical, polished, uniform, like a mirror made by intelligent hands. Every comet has a voice, and in most cases, that voice is water. As they approach the sun, frozen water turns to vapor, forming those iconic glowing tails. But 3 Atlas has remained eerily silent. Spectral data confirms that water is present beneath its surface. It's there waiting dormant, but it's not emerging. Instead, just 4.5 kilograms of water are released per second, a tenth of what's expected. One theory says the intense CO2 outgassing is acting like a thermal blanket, cooling the surface and trapping the water beneath. Another says the water is buried too deep, unreachable by solar heat. But here's the problem. Even those theories can't explain the consistency. There are no cracks, no disruptions, no spikes in water vapor, just one steady rhythm of CO2 over and over like a machine. And that begs the question, what if the absence of water isn't a coincidence? What if it's intentional? If an object defies everything we know about comets, shouldn't it be headline news? When Oumuamua was discovered in 2017, the world exploded with curiosity. Within days, it was all over the media, with Harvard scientists even suggesting it could be alien technology. But 3 Atlas, nothing. Silence. NASA's SphereX detected Atlas in August 2025. It captured the enormous red coma, the baffling lack of water, the strange reflectivity. But there were no press releases, no interviews, not even a tweet. The data was quietly buried on a blog post weeks later, as if it were routine, as if it weren't history being made. Some experts chalk it up to protocol. Others say it's about avoiding speculation. But more and more voices in the scientific community are starting to say what many are thinking. This feels familiar. This feels controlled. And if NASA is keeping quiet, maybe it's because they know more than they're saying. 3. Atlas doesn't just look strange. It moves in ways that defy celestial mechanics. Its trajectory is not just interstellar. It's impossibly precise. Unlike traditional comets that are flung into our system by gravitational disturbances or passively drift along hyperbolic paths, 3-2 Atlas seems to be following a calculated route, one that brushes just close enough to planets and solar radiation to collect data, but never so close as to be destabilized. When its projected path was reverse engineered, astronomers were shocked. The object appeared to have made micro-corrections mid-flight. Slight, almost imperceptible angular shifts that shouldn't be possible for a natural body. These course adjustments require energy, intent, and awareness. In other words, this object isn't just moving. Through our solar system, it's navigating it. And when those paths were cross-referenced with historic observations of deep sky anomalies, some researchers believe this object, or something like it, may have passed near Earth before, hidden in ancient observations mistaken for stars or eclipses, as if this wasn't its first visit, as if it knows the way. While James Webb focused on the spectral analysis of 3I Atlas's coma, it made a discovery that's now being hotly debated behind closed doors. The object emits a spectral signature corresponding to complex organic molecules, not uncommon in deep space. But what made this terrifying was the ratio and arrangement of those molecules. Instead of random dispersion, the data revealed a repeating chemical rhythm. Methanol, carbon monoxide, formaldehyde, not scattered but layered, structured. The layering mimicked the pattern of protein folding found in terrestrial life forms. Now let's be clear, no one is saying 3I Atlas is alive, but the molecular order suggests design purpose. One fringe theory, now slowly entering mainstream circles, posits that these molecules may be part of a biological probe, not a message to be read, but one to be inhaled by a planetary biosphere. In short, a payload. And if Earth's atmosphere interacts with these molecules in just the right way, we may not have years to prepare. We may only have months. On a quiet morning in late July, the SEI Institute picked up a signal, not from a star system, not from deep space, but from somewhere between Mars and Jupiter. It was brief, narrowband, repeating, and when decoded into audio, it sounded eerily like a pulse synthetic tone, similar to a rotating beacon, one used in early radar or submarine sonar. Normally, SDY would dismiss this as terrestrial interference, but they couldn't. The signal moved in sync with the trajectory of 3 Atlas. As the object shifted slightly, so it did the origin point. The signal wasn't coming from Earth. It was following the comet. For 17 minutes, this tone echoed through multiple observatories. Then silence. When SETI attempted to triangulate, their systems experienced a total data crash. Logs were wiped, antennas misaligned, internal backups scrambled. And just like that, the story disappeared. The official explanation, a weather glitch, but the engineers involved have all signed NDAs. Some have quit, and one was recently hospitalized after claiming he had heard the signal in his dreams. The James Webb Telescope operates in infrared, capable of detecting heat signatures from billions of years ago. When pointed directly at 3 Atlas's nucleus, scientists expected to find a cold, solid core typical of comets. Instead, they found a flat line. Not low, not variable, but perfectly zero. This is impossible. Every object in space emits some infrared radiation. But 3 Atlas seemed to absorb and reflect nothing. It was as if it weren't there, or worse, as if it existed in a separate thermal dimension. This anomaly triggered a cross-check with other instruments, including ESA's solar orbiter. They confirmed it. The object's core was a void, reflecting no heat, no absorption spectrum, not even when blasted by solar wind. The only logical conclusion was horrifying, that the object's core wasn't made of any known material, that it was cloaked or hollow or a projection. Some now believe what we're seeing may not be the object itself, but a shell, a decoy, a mask for something hidden behind frequencies we don't yet understand. Something that's been watching us long before we had the tools to watch back. When researchers enhanced the image of 3I Atlas's coma using Fourier transformation and multispectrum filters, they stumbled upon a chilling phenomenon hidden within the gas cloud, which should be random, was a repeating fractal pattern, not once, not twice, but across every frame captured over a 17-day period. The pattern wasn't decorative. It was structured, geometric, and recursively nested as if the cloud were encoding information in the form of a visual algorithm. One team tried to map the fractal to known mathematical constants. The results aligned eerily with the golden ratio and Fibonacci sequences, both deeply rooted in natural order, but also in human consciousness. Was this an interstellar signature, a test, a trap, or something even more unsettling? A form of communication that only a sufficiently evolved intelligence would be able to perceive? Either way, the message wasn't meant for our instruments. It was meant for our minds. As data on 3 Atlas was shared with bioinformatics teams worldwide, a shocking correlation emerged. The molecular arrangement of the comet's emitted particles, particularly certain carbonary compounds, bore an almost perfect overlap with sequences found in mitochondrial DNA, specifically in regions tied to cellular aging and neurodevelopment. This led to the formation of a controversial new theory that 3 Atlas carries resonant biological code not to infect or mutate, but to trigger dormant genetic instructions. What if this object isn't bringing something new, but activating something ancient? What if our evolution wasn't random, but timed? What if 3 Atlas is the cosmic clock? The implications are overwhelming. This wouldn't be contact. It would be reconnection. A switch flipped from light years away. One that could accelerate cognition, memory, even consciousness, or extinguish it altogether. Multiple observatories across the globe reported the same bizarre anomaly. A delay between light emitted from the comet and the gravitational signature it should produce. That shouldn't be possible. Gravity is instantaneous at this scale. But when models were refined, the data revealed a second invisible mass trailing exactly 312,000 km behind 3 Atlas. This gravitational ghost couldn't be seen in visible light, infrared, ultraviolet, or radio. But its pull was real. It shifted solar particles, bent comet tails, and caused measurable lensing of background stars. The mass, comparable to a small asteroid, but perfectly silent. No emissions, no radiation, no data, just presence. Some theorists believe this could be a probe, a parasite, or even a true object with 3 Atlas, merely acting as the front-facing decoy, a mask hiding the face. And if that's true, then everything we've seen so far is just a curtain. What's really moving toward us is behind it. 2 weeks ago, a leaked document from a high-level aerospace contractor suggested that the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs, UNIUSA, had received a classified transmission from NASA, ESA, and CNSA, confirming anomalous object 3-2 Atlas no longer behaves according to expected celestial models and suggesting multinational coordination for planetary observation escalation. This leak was quickly denied, scrubbed, and discredited. But internal logs on satellite networks revealed something that couldn't be erased. A spike in encrypted communications across all orbital telescopes and deep space arrays, followed by a synchronized firmware update. An event that typically takes months to coordinate, yet happened globally in less than 36 hours. Why such urgency? Why such silence? Why upgrade every telescope on Earth at once? And what were they preparing to track or hide? As scientists from ESA and NASA attempted to model the objects repeating CO2 emissions, they noticed a rhythmic pulse embedded in the venting intervals. But this wasn't just any rhythm. The spacing between emissions matched Planck time intervals when scaled logarithmically. Planck time, for context, is the smallest measurable unit of time in physics, the quantum tick of a universe. When overlaid on a global atomic clock, systems, several high-precision instruments in Geneva, Tokyo, and Boulder began to register microcond desynchronizations. It was as if something in 3 Atlas's frequency was distorting local space. Seemed subtly enough to be deniable, but consistently enough to break consensus time between satellites. More chillingly, civilian reports began to flood in from observatories, clocks skipping beats, drones falling from synchronization, and a few classified military systems entering time desync errors. If 3I Atlas can warp time at a distance, what happens when it gets closer? While the coma of 3 Atlas remained active and spewing CO2, a new James Webb scan revealed that the core temperature had dropped far below predicted levels to nearly 40 Kelvin, approaching absolute zero. That temperature is physically incompatible with the outgassing activity observed. In plain terms, a core that cold shouldn't be active. What's even stranger is that the thermal mapping shows a perfectly spherical cold zone, sharply bounded, with no thermal gradient. This means that something not natural is regulating the internal temperature. Some now suspect the object has a cryogenic chamber inside it, potentially storing sensitive material or even preserving something. Could this be a vessel for life or death? The idea that 3 Atlas could be a delivery mechanism maintaining a frozen core through deep space only to deploy it when reaching proximity to Earth has gone from fringe to mainstream conversation among astrobiologists. And if it's cryogenic, then it's designed to awaken. The Very Large Telescope VLT in Chile conducted high-speed photometric imaging of 3I Atlas's passage behind distant stars. A common technique to learn about an object's shape, but the results revealed something impossible. Light echoes, that is after the comet passed, faint shadows and reflections continued to appear as if the object left behind an imprint in space-time. These echoes did not fade like normal. They persisted for hours, then days, subtly shifting position with the Earth's rotation. Astrophysicists tried to dismiss it as lensing, but the phenomenon remained even when using different filters, cameras, and instruments. It was almost as if the object was duplicating itself across dimensions, or that we were seeing simultaneous versions of it from other points in time. A Harvard quantum optics team now believes we may be dealing with a form of temporal echo, a side effect of an object not bound by linear time, something that exists in many moments at once, but only lets us see a piece of it at any given moment. After months of analysis, a rogue group of comparative mythologists and astrophysicists began to publish an idea that would have been laughable until now. They found ancient records scattered across multiple civilizations: Sumerians, Dune, Mayans, the Indies, Valley, all referring to a star that returns every 13 lifetimes and carries with it a mirror that sees the soul of Earth. The descriptions matched eerily with modern observations of 3I Atlas, the red eye in the sky, the symmetrical light, the silent passing without tail. The ancients even described rituals of stillness, coinciding with its arrival as if anticipating a signal or awaiting judgment. These records, previously dismissed as myth, are now being reevaluated by Set 1 historians. Because if 3I Atlas is not a comet, but a sensor, a watcher, or a harbinger, then perhaps those who came before us already knew what it meant. And if they prepared, maybe we should too. After everything the James Webb Telescope has captured, after every signal, shadow, and anomaly we've tried to rationalize, one truth is becoming undeniable. 3 Atlas is not here to pass by. It's here to reflect back. This object, or whatever intelligence hides behind its veil, has woven itself into our myths, our physics, and now our perception of reality itself. Its timing, its structure, its silence are not coincidental. They are deliberate, measured, and ancient. It did not arrive. It returned. The reason it breaks our models is because it was never meant to obey them, because it doesn't operate inside our rules. And perhaps neither do we. Perhaps we are the anomaly it came to observe, to judge, or to awaken. Governments may remain silent. Agencies may pretend it's just another space rock, but the instruments are no longer silent. The patterns are too precise, and the effect is already rippling not just through our atmosphere, but through our memory, our biology, our past. Because 3i Atlas doesn't just reflect light. It reflects who we become. So the next time you stare into the stars and see something watching back, don't look away. You might not be looking at a comet. You might be looking into the mirror of our own origin or our end. I'd love to hear what you think about this, so drop a comment below. If you enjoyed our conversation today, please share this video and subscribe to help the channel grow. Every bit of support counts.